Morning, sorry. The 9th of March, Rabbi Furst, Pierke Avos, Pesach.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, man.
So I guess it's an obvious question. I don't know. Most of the Haggadah is written in Hebrew, but its very first statement of halachma is written in Aramaic.
Yep, that's one of the first obvious questions to consider, correct?
I'm not sure why that would be.
Okay, so we'll try and answer that. Hold on, let's continue on, and we'll try and get an answer to that as we go along.
Where does the Aramaic finish? Or was that the whole paragraph?
It's just the whole paragraph, Roy, and then comes the Manish Tana.
Okay. Right. Yeah, you should. The Haggadah is basically a compilation of Mishnahs, Brises, Gemaras, and Midrashim, which so you'll find many times more Aramaic also in the Gemaras and the Midrashim.
The translation of it seems to be addressed just to the general population, which was Aramaic speaking population.
Right. The Haggadah, very good. That's very good, Roy. The Haggadah was codified basically, as far as I understand, when we were still in our first Golos bubble, right? Because at the time we had the base of Mikdash, right? So the avoda that we were doing was drastically different than what we do now. When we had the base of Mikdash, we had the Korban Pesach. So the whole of the avoda of that night of Pesach revolved around the eating of the Korban Pesach, right? And exactly when, for example, when were the 4 cups of wine instituted, right? But that's all based on Gemaras. The Gemara speaks about 4 cups and goes into details about the 4 cups.
Mm-hmm.
And but when that first was instituted, that remains to be seen. So it was actually the Haggadah, as I mentioned, as far as I know, was codified basically when we were in Bavel. It might have predated the Anshe Knesset Gedola. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, go ahead. Whoever would like to read, let's read the Halachmanya. We'll try to understand it a bit.
All right, I'll read.
If you like, go ahead, Lou.
Ha'lachmanya di achalu av ha-sana be'ara de Mitzrayim. Kol dichfin yetze v'yechol kol ditin yetze v'yifsach hashta hacha l'shana haba'a be'ara d'Yisrael chayshavta avdei l'shana haba'a b'nei chorin. Okay, this is the bread of affliction that our fathers ate in Mitzrayim. All who are hungry. or I guess anyone who is hungry, let him eat. Let him come and eat. Whoever is needy, let him come and celebrate Pesach. Now we are here. Next year, may we be in the land of Israel. Now we are slaves. Next year, may we be free men.
Very good. So in terms of like the Aramaic, right? The Aramaic. So as I mentioned, the Mephoshim speak about that this was actually developed at the time after the Korban bias. So that's when the common lashon was Aramaic rather than Hebrew.
So I have a question about this. Whoever is hungry, let him eat. Whoever is needy, come let him celebrate. Now we do have the custom to give money to poor people, but we don't invite poor people. I mean, it wouldn't be too hard, I think, to find poor people to come to one Seder. But we don't do that.
What do you mean that we don't do that?
We don't reach out to outreach organizations that help the poor and say send us a couple of people who are needy, so they'll come and eat and celebrate with us on Pesach. This seems to imply that we should do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, we live very artificially. In earlier times, it was very common. The people had their doors open to the people in very common. It was very common that people have wayfarers or homeless people come and stay and live and eat by them. Right? Very common that they open their homes to people.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
So why do we stop doing that?
as I said, we're living in very artificial times now. I mean, we're very removed from what things used to be. Modern society, people live far away from each other. We don't live in close quarters with other people. I mean, here, book in Eretz Israel, it's a bit different. And, we live,
You can see this in, well, say from in where we were brought up in Melbourne, for example. We used to have, we lived in a suburb called St Kilda and Caulfield. We used to have the doors open when we were kids, and there was we used to talk to everybody as we were walking down the street. Now we wouldn't even think of not locking up. Even here we lock up when we leave. We don't leave the doors unlocked.
Yeah, no, I remember when I was growing up in the suburbs of New York when I would the door was we didn't like the house door. I didn't carry a key for the house door when I just come home from school, and then many times no one was home, and the door would be open.
Mm.
You didn't think about you know. So people were very friendly with each other and very open, and even more so if you go back to the times in Europe when Jews lived in concentrated communities together. So everyone knew the situation of other people. It was very common that that they would take in people. They made sure nobody would go without their basic needs.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah, so,
In Metashim, those times will return.
yeah, for sure. Um, so just give me 1 minute here. Um, right, as the um, one of the commentaries I have in front of me here brings down about this hasmana, this invitation. Ki yedu ki yesh lahem simcha gedola shemidarchai laharbos lahazmin roim ahuvim. It's known, right? It's known that a person's very has a great joy that he has the opportunity to extend himself and to invite friends and beloved those who are cherished to him. So simcha v'mishta, to make a joyous joy, have joyous festivities. Mikol sheshmachsa yosef gedola misava yosef laharbos reim ahuvim. Right. Um, so you want to have people come over. You're interested in people coming over, and so it's only fair, right? It's only fair that if you're interested in having your close friends and relatives with you, that you should extend yourself also to those people who are lacking in what they need. And here, even more so, because here it's not just a meal. The many, if not almost all of the mitzvahs that we must do on the night of Pesach are revolving around the meal, right? So you want the people who don't have the wherewithal to have all the things they need for the night of Pesach. You want to have them have the opportunity to fulfill the mitzvahs through your generosity in opening your home to them. Mhm. So again, like I said, in earlier times when people who would not have places to eat and to stay, so they would know that they could go from street to street until they would find a household which would allow them to come in and partake of their their suit as well, and so instituted this invitation that it should include all people at all times, that if they're lacking, right? Um, and tell you the truth, it's only possible, this type of invitation for the night of Pesach is only possible when we don't have a base of Mikdash. When we would have a base of Mikdash and we had to eat from the Korban Pesach, you had to be included in the Chabur, the group of people who were bringing this Korban Pesach.
So how would this statement apply then?
Which statement are you referring to?
Whoever is hungry, let him come and eat.
Right. So that this statement doesn't apply when we have a base of Mikdash. This is a statement which is applicable when we have we're in Golis.
So we had a different Haggadah at that time?
Yeah. Well, in fact, the Haggadah, there was no real Haggadah in the Bias Rishon. There was no real Haggadah. The Haggadah, as we know it, had begun to be formulated when we were in Golis and Bubble, and it was codified probably in the second base of Mikdash. And whether they had the Lahachmanya when they had the second base of Mikdash, that's I don't know that. That's unknown to me.
Uh-huh.
That
And what about the statement, now we are slaves?
right.
I'm not a slave now.
Well, yeah, well, we really are slaves. We're very far from exercising our free will to serve Kadosh Baruch Hu in the proper ways.
Uh-huh.
What what the exact connotation of slaves is here. Um, so um, so what the connotation is over here? One moment. Mm, yeah, the reference to being a body is basically because we're still in Gullus. I think that's the main connotation over here.
The fact that we're in Goldness is what makes us slaves.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Um, one second.
And since and since uh, we're all brothers, we're even if we're in Eretz Israel at the moment, since the majority of us are not, then the Golas and the majority of us are slaves, then by default, I suppose we are aligned with them and can be considered to be slaves as well.
Yeah, right. The fact that it's more than simply just being first of all, as you said, Roy, the majority of the Jews are in numbered in foreign lands, and then number two, even the Jews that are here in Eretz Israel, the situation here is far from being free to serve the Kadosh Baruch Hu properly. So it's
Well, living in Tel Aviv.
excuse me. Excuse me.
Try living in Tel Aviv, anywhere in Tel Aviv.
Hmm.
No, I mean you should. I mean you should know. I don't know. The other day I had to take a trip to the central section of the country, place called not too far from Herzliya called Ramat Sharon, and it's not at all a particularly what I would call a particularly religious area at all, but I went there on it was on the tiny house. I was impressed that when we passed by like the main road, I noticed that there were several restaurants that were I mean they were like open, but they were closed. They weren't serving any food. And I was very impressed.
Mm.
You know, and we davened mincha in one of the local shows, and there were many. I mean, there were some B'nai Torah there too, a couple of yeshiva bachrim and one or two younger light, but the majority of people were just basically good, fine, nice religious Jews of all types, coming from all lands and perspectives. And it was very nice to see. I was talking with my son as we came out. He said, Hashem loves that very much when all kinds of Jews from all kinds of places and all kinds of perspectives, they come together and they daven together in the shul. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing. It's really wonderful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I understand in Tel Aviv there are some areas that are very frum.
Yeah. I mean, it is. There are enclaves of religion there, but unfortunately, a lot of it's far, very far from what we desire and what a Kadosh Baruch Hu desires. So yeah, we still have a long way to go from getting out of Golos, wherever we happen to live. That says here, right? Say the Achla says Lachma.
So the idea of the slavery of Gullus is that there are mitzvahs that we can't do.
It's much more. It's more. If it would just be mitzvahs, that would be a very limited technical point. But it's much more invasive. The influence of Gullus, the cultures and societies that we have to be exposed to, the education and the media that we have to be exposed to. It's a tremendous disturbance to our serving Kadosh Baruch in the proper way. It's a tremendous disturbance, and unfortunately, we've especially growing up and not being shielded from it properly, we many times don't even realize how it's affected us, how immune we've become to the sensitivities, how dull our sensitivities are to serving Kadosh Baruch in the proper way, because we've simply been inundated by the media and the culture and the societies on where we live in. It says here that the explain here says Hine Shah Hayos Asuda Azos Hu Mamish Kilachma Anya. Should be trying. When we're eating this the Suda that we're eating is mamish. It's mamish like the lachma anya of Mitzrayim. It's like the bread of affliction that we ate in Mitzrayim. Ki Suda nikra al shem alechem. A Suda revolves around the bread that you eat in the Suda. Loba ben Ishai El Lechem. In Kain Haroy Shul Shalolis Smoke. Kim Simplamash Zu Osa. Because we hear it says it's really befitting that we shouldn't be rejoicing at all. It says here we really shouldn't be rejoicing at all. Right? Kimosha Achnu, it's like we should be eating this this Suda, right? It was Roy Hayeshalolis Sameach. We shouldn't be joyous at all. He has Simcha Mazu also Acher Shanachnu Shukurim Begolas Ruim Arishon. That how can we be happy? How can we truly be happy when we're engulfed in a gullus that's worse than even worse than the first one? We should be eating this Suda with a bitter heart. Kamosha Akla was saying in Mitzrayim, just like our forefathers were eating their bread in the time of their slavery with bitterness and despair. It was different, however, when the base of Mikdash was built, existing. We didn't say this. This statement of halach manya, right? This statement wasn't made when we had the korban, when we had the base of Mikdash kain. Rak only perek zeh, rak b'shas korban. we only say this halachmanya only the time and with a korban when there was no base of mikdash, when we're in Golus. Nevertheless, we have there is a glimmer of hope. There is a glimmer of hope. Rather, however, we're joyous in being taken out of our golas, that we have we have a promise that just as we were redeemed from the original Gullus of Mitzrayim, we'll also be redeemed from the Gullus of that we're right now in developed. Yeah. So yeah, that's something that we have to bear in mind. Okay, let's see. Any other points in the Lachmanya we should discuss?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, any other points we should discuss in the Lachmanya?
So just to summarize what you said, we're slaves basically because we have a government that's not a proper Torah government, and therefore we have a society that is not a proper Torah society.
Yeah, that's one aspect of it, but also in the rest of throughout the whole world, it's not even a government. I mean, even the society we live in is not a Torah society. The world we live in is not a Torah world, right? It's completely invasive to our way of life and what we should be trying to do, and to serve a Kadosh Baruch Hu properly. Right, but one of the reasons relevant to Purim just yesterday, one of the Gemara brings down several reasons why we don't say Hallel on Purim, and one of the reasons were because we are dying Avdei Achashverosh. We were still these servants, the subjects, the slaves of Achashverosh. Right? And temporarily that ended. Temporarily that ended. Perhaps, well, actually, not even. Even when they rebuilt the base of Mikdash, there was a gate of entrance into the base of Mikdash. It was called Shar Shushan. Shar Shushan, right? And you might well wonder, well, what does there have to be a gate it's leading to the base of Mikdash is called Shushan, right? So there are various answers given by the Rishonim, Rashi, other Rishonim, and one of the answers is that we shouldn't forget that we were still subservient to Shushan, that they allowed us to rebuild the base of Mikdash. They financed it in many ways, gave us the support that we needed to rebuild the base of Mikdash. So we're still very much the servants of those powers that existed in Shushan and in Golus as well. Here, okay. Even if you would want to say that we would have a Torah government, right? But they would still be beholden the way the political situation is. Even a Torah government that would be in Eretz Israel would still be beholden to the to the non-Jewish governments of the world.
Uh-huh.
Right?
But if we had a king and a Sanhedrin, and the country was governed in accordance with halacha, you wouldn't say that we were therefore we were free.
Well, I mean, well, basically, what you're saying is that, if we had a king, I mean, that's not going to be possible except Melech Mashiach. The only king that we can have is that of Mashiach. So I mean, that will be the finality of everything, right? And so
And then we'll be free because we have that Mashiach.
right, right. That'll be. And as the Rambam says, you're probably familiar with the Rambam. The Rambam says that ein bein olam hazeh v'yemos Mashiach. There's no difference between the times that we live in now and the times of Mashiach, except Shibud Malchus Bilbad. The only thing that's going to change is that there won't be a Shibud Malchus. We won't be subservient to the rest of the nations. Now we are in Golas, and we have to be subservient in various different ways to the rest of the nations, right? But in the time of Mashiach, the only thing that's going to change is we will no longer have that. That's called, what we refer to that as Shibud Malchus. That's basically the rule of the non-Jews over us. Now they're ruling over us, right? We're not ruling over them. Meaning it wouldn't even be enough if we were independent, right? No, we have to be able to rule over them, right? We have to be the ones in control. It wouldn't be even if we would have, let's say, would have a proper Torah government here in Israel, and let's say even if we had a Sanhedrin, right? But if the Sanhedrin was not legislating things for the non-Jews as well that they would have to fulfill, then that's not an end of Golas either.
You're talking about the non-Jews in Israel, or you're talking about the non-Jews in France?
All over the world, all over the world. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not following that. Why, if we're independent, the world opinion may say that they don't like something we're doing, but we basically ignore them and we do what we want to do. And the entire country is keeping Shabbos, and the rabbinate has its proper position, and kashrus is being maintained properly. Why would you say we're not free under that circumstance?
Okay, so again, at the very end of Elenu, what do we say at the very end of Elenu? Right?
We vow and prostrate and thank before the King of the Kings, the Holy One, blessed is He.
Right. We say B'yomahu yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad, right?
Right. Say Hashem will be one and His name one.
Right. That means everyone's going to acknowledge it, right? We say in the Elenu, we say, right, Al Kain, right? The beginning of the second paragraph, right? We say, Al Kain nigvar lecho Hashem Elokeinu leros mehera b'siferes uzecha avir gululim min haaretz v'lulim mikros v'teresim v'sukim ha'olam b'malchus shakai. It'll be you have to be metakin the oilam b'malchus shakai. B'kol b'nei basa yikru b'shmecha v'fnos elecha kol rishei aretz yikiru v'yedu kol yosvei sevel. Right, all these things. This it's not simply enough that we have autonomy in a religious government and say a Sanhedrin and legislation. Those are all very good things, but anything short of what we're saying there in the Elena is not complete freedom.
I'm sorry. How do we make the connection that that Elena was the criteria for freedom. I thought Elena was talking about the final redemption and the coming of Mashiach.
That is freedom. That is freedom.
Why?
Because until the whole world is subservient to Kadosh Baruch Hu, we're always going to be influenced by them. They're not going to be influenced by us. And as long as they're influencing us, we're going to be in some way or another in a matzav of a situation of galus, of exile. Right? It's not simply the whole world. That's what it's meant. That the whole thing, l'sakin oilam b'malchus shaka. That the whole olam, the whole world should be l'sakin, should be rectified, and should be established b'malchus shaka with the kingdom of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. It has to be a Kadosh Baruch Hu kingdom. A king can't have just a few loyal subjects, which are his. You ever see the picture of Napoleon with his old guard? Well, you remember that picture, the big famous picture of the old guard of Napoleon? Remember that picture?
Sorry, I don't.
Famous painting, the old guard of Napoleon's old guard. These were soldiers that had been with Napoleon since he was a young cadet in the French army, and they were with him since he became king and emperor, and they were with him throughout all his conquests. And at this point, most of them, they were all like, and so he had his royal guard. They were his royal guard. So, but it's not enough that a king just has a loyal guard. It's very nice if he has the Jewish people and we're loyal and we're observant to his wishes. Yeah, but that's not enough. That's not enough of a kingdom, right? The kingdom is everyone has to obey. Everyone has to obey the king, and that makes a kingdom. That's we learned, and when we learned the Megillah, Achashverosh didn't make his mishteh. He didn't make his party until the third year. Why? Because what took place in those first 3 years? The first 3 years, he was trying to consolidate his powers. Until his powers were fully consolidated, he couldn't properly rejoice, right? And Havdil, it's the same with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Until the Kadosh Baruch Hu's consolidates, so to speak, all his powers in this world, meaning the whole world is subservient to Kadosh Baruch Hu, meaning there's going to be a Beis Hamikdash, there's going to be a Sanhedrin, right? That's what we say at the very end of the Sukkot Zimra, right? We say Sukkot Zimra, it's a pasuk, and we say and we mean it very much that at the very end of the Shir Shel Yom, and just before beginning Shtabach, that we say Rialu Mashiim Bahar Tzion Es Haritza Vayasa Hashem Amlucha, that those who will return to Har Tzion, they'll come there to judge Har Esav, they'll come to judge Esav, and at that point Hayasa Hashem Amlucha, and Hashem will be crowned to be king. Will be crowned to be king. It's not simply that we have an autonomy, and again, that's very nice, and it might even be the beginning of what's needed to bring into effect the eventual Gula Shalema. But until we have the Gula Shalema, we're not going to be considered to be free from the influence of the non-Jews. And until we actually judge Esav for what he needs to be judged for, there won't be the kingdom of Kadosh Baruch Hu so consolidated either. And once that happens, then the kingdom of the Kadosh Baruch Hu's reign will be consolidated, and then there'll be a time for rejoicing. Then we'll be truly free. We'll be able to serve the Kadosh Baruch Hu properly. But until that time, there's many things which distract us and prevent us from serving Kadosh Baruch Hu in the right, proper ways. Okay, actually, I see it's about what 5 to 10 already. All right, if we can, this will probably be a theme that we can probably continue on with. Because actually, it's the juxtaposition between joy and bitterness and the different symbolic references of the Lechem Oni and the Moror, and on the other hand, we're saying Hallel. You see that there's a juxtaposition of different themes throughout the whole of the Pesach Seder, so that undercurrent is already here at the very beginning, and so it pays for us to try and understand this at its basic fundamental aspects, because that'll help us understand why are we doing certain things during the Seder, why are we saying certain things. So Mitzvah, we'll continue more tomorrow, Mitzvah.
Very good.
Amen.
Okay. Very good, Mitzvah. So we'll take a little break, and we'll also be starting our Hilchos Pesach as well. So if you have your Pelek, the 5th volume of the Mishnah Berurah, that'll also be beneficial to continue on with that in a few minutes.
Okay, very good.
Good. Okay, Roy,
Okay.
have a good afternoon.